Okay, so change of venue this week. I'm in England. I came on Saturday and today's Tuesday. So, just recovering from the jet lag and whatnot. I've had a few nights of going to bed at 6 o'clock and sleeping for 14 hours and I'm raring to go. It's a hell of a trip over. I think it took me just over 40 hours all up. Flying. I find flying is a strange thing. It's kind of like the best and the worst of everything all in one. I don't like flying. I used to be really scared of flying. I'm not so much now. I'm kind of a bit better, but in general, there's the whole, if this plane crashes, we're going to die / eat each other, be marooned on a desert island with a tiger. Oh no, I think that was probably a one-off. And inevitably you get sat next to either a really big man or a crying child. Actually the worst is when you have a child sat in front of you who is maybe about 4 and they at that really starey stage where they just put their head in between the two seats and they're just like this. You kind of try and be polite to begin with and just sort of like, hi! And then it gets to the point where you're like, stop fucking looking at me. But like the parents there and they're just finding it really funny. They're like, oh, isn't she funny? Isn't she cute? And you're like, yeah, get her away. I don't like children staring at me. I find it very strange and unnerving. I sat next to a guy once who, perfectly nice, but about halfway through the flight got really bad BO. And so, he's eating his dinner and every time he lifts up the arm, I get an onslaught. Highly unpleasant. But then on the flip side, you're kind of going through this living hell, sitting next to the guy with the BO and you're trapped in and the plane's shaking and you think you're going to crash and die and the airline food tastes like shit. But then it's kind of brilliant because for 12 hours, like, you just guilt-free can sit and just watch movies, and then about every sort of hour and a half, someone walks up with a tray of beer. Free beer? Yes please, I'll have the free beer. And that's sort of my idea of heaven, like that's kind of what I do on a weekend sometimes, just sit there and watch movies. But there's always the guilt that you should be doing something else. But on a plane, you can just sit, well, you can't really sit back, but you can gently recline. Oh god, this chair reclines, brilliant. Ah! Don't know what that noise was. You can just sit back, relax, watch whatever you want. I'll tell you what the worst thing is actually though, watching movies and TV on plane is when the sex scene comes on. I started watching Game of Thrones and I'm like, oh brilliant, you can really get into that, something meaty and exciting to get you through the journey. And my god, there's a lot of sex in that programme. And you kind of, it's like when you watch sex scenes with like your parents or whatever, on TV, that is, not sex scenes with your parents. Yeah. And you don't know, you want to try and look sort of nonchalant and relaxed, like you're not bothered, but you can't. And you're like, do I avert my eyes? Do I carry on watching? Do I leave the room? What do I do? And you're doing that on a plane and people are walking past, and they don't know what you're watching. Maybe the guy next to you can see you're watching Game of Thrones and he's not judging. But like the other people walking past, they're like, oh, this pervy bitch. Kind of embarrassing. One of the things I hate though is when you've got one of those pilots who just really likes the sound of their own voice. It's not enough that they've got a super cool job and they get to wear like a really snazzy hat and fly big planes around the world and have everyone's respect. They also just like to fucking talk and hear their own voice over the microphone. You're watching your soft porn and Game of Thrones and then every fucking 5 minutes, like, they come over the tannoy, interrupt your thing, your movie pauses, you get their voice in your ear, like, telling you about the fucking weather update. And, you're 10 hours away, and 10 hours, A, the weather might have changed, And B, like, do you give a fuck? Who cares what the weather's like at that point? You know, I might want a quick update just before I land, but I just want to watch my movie at this stage. It's like the duty-free cart's coming around. Who fucking cares? I have never seen anyone buy anything from that duty-free cart. When you get off the plane and before you get on the plane, there are like hundreds of shops full of duty-free. Why would you want to buy it off a little trolley on the way around? I don't get it. And then there's that great bit when, you know, when you land and inevitably, wherever you are, the first voice you hear when you walk into the airport has got like the strongest fucking accent. So, you know, I got into Birmingham after 40 hours of travelling. I arrived at the international hotspot that is Birmingham and just heard, welcome to Birmingham Airport. Your baggage is over there. Awful. No, I'm joking. I love you, Birmingham, really.